So the story is inspired by the director's experience of her brother coming home from prison.
Okay.
And so before we started working on the film, I guess about a half a year before that, her brother came home from serving a 10-year sentence. And so we were inspired by that and inspired by how that release affected her mother.
Okay. And how did the director feel, you're drawing inspiration from her real life, essentially, probably something that I imagine was difficult for her. How did she feel when you approached her about making a film?
So I think some of the strength in Amanda's work, Amanda's the director, is a lot of her work is inspired by real life stuff, and she's really interested in telling stories about incarceration.
Okay.
And so when I talked to her about the idea, she was really excited about it, and I was excited about it, and I think the fact that it was coming from real life almost made it easier to tell the story. I think it was hard in some ways in terms of, servicing the story and not getting too attached to real life details and making sure that the end goal is always about the characters and the story and not getting too attached to personal relationships to the story itself.
So how early in the process then was the decision made to change it from the brother to someone's daughter?
I think it was actually really early on, and I think that was one of the techniques we used to sort of depersonalize the story, so making it from the mother and daughter's perspective. I think as two women, filmmakers, it was easier for us, I feel like, to tell that story, and it kind of made the story its own thing, and not as much related to real life.
And has Amanda the director, has Amanda's brother seen the film, just out of interest?
I don't know. I think so. I know her parents came. This was made as part of our graduation thesis film, and so I know her parents were there to watch the film. And I expect her brother has seen it.
And how did the parents react to seeing it?
I think they really loved it.
Right.
Yeah, I think they really liked it.
You mentioned there the themes of incarceration are important to the director. Have you had anyone approach you about those themes and said, this is potentially a sensitive topic, people in prison? Has anyone come up to you and asked you about it?
Not really. I know for this particular story, there's a lot of films that talk about sort of incarceration from the incarcerated person's standpoint, and so we wanted to make a film that was about, loved ones who bring home people from prison. And I think some of the subject matter is so sensitive and rich in a way that it actually really helped us when we were casting and when we were crewing up for the film, because a lot of our cast that ended up being in the film has had personal experience with people that they've been close to be in prison. And so I think in that sense, the community really came around and helped support the film. Yeah.
And how many real, again, it's kind of Amanda's story. I'm aware that it's, a fictionalized version of that, but you mentioned other people involved in the film had experiences with family members being incarcerated. During the process of writing it or even filming it, were you listening to their stories and changing things, or how did it work?
Not really. I think we didn't change that much based on other people's stories, but I know one of the things that we wanted to focus on was not focusing on the crime that Esperanza committed.
Okay.
We wanted to keep that sort of just not a part of the film.
Yeah.
Because it was more about what it feels like when someone like that comes home and what it does to a family when they've been away. But I will say, actually, the house that we filmed in was really interesting because it was our first trip to Texas to sort of scout. We shot in San Antonio, and we met one of the women from the San Antonio Four. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So there were 4 women that were wrongfully convicted, and they were exonerated, I believe, 2016. And one of those women, Ana Vasquez, we met on that first trip, and we were just chatting with her and her partner, and she was like, well, what kind of locations are you looking for? And we told her, we want like a classic Texas, like ranch house, like really traditional, not too like frou-frou. And she's like, oh, it sounds like the house I live in with my mom, and like the house that I grew up in. And so we went and scouted, and we're like, oh my God, this is perfect. So like in that way, the film kind of became more authentic because we were actually filming in the home that this woman grew up in, and where she came back to after she got out of prison.
That's amazing.
So it added this like texture that we just, I mean, we couldn't have.
No. So did you talk to the mother at all about
Pardon?
it? Did you talk to the mother at all about the film?
Anna's mother?
Yes.
Yeah, so she was there when we were filming. She wasn't staying in the house. They were staying at a family's place since we kind of took over the whole house for a week.
Yeah, borrowed someone's house.
But yeah, she was, I mean, super understanding, really helpful, really sweet, and I think we'll be doing a screening in San Antonio in July.
Oh, amazing.
So I feel like they'll
Perfect.
come and see it on the big screen.
Brilliant. So was Amanda the other co-writer on it?
Mm-hmm.
How was the creative process for you?
It was pretty seamless.
Yeah?
I think we actually didn't spend too much time like sitting side by side working on the script. What we would do is like I'd do changes, I'd send her a draft, and then like she'd do some changes and then send it back, and then we'd talk about it.
Right.
And I think that worked really well for us.
Right. So she wasn't overly attached to the topic, obviously, because again, it's just quite close to her.
Yeah. I mean, I think there were. I feel like my job as a producer was sort of playing that role of like, yeah, I know this is like what happened in real life, but we should like.
But we're making a movie.
Yeah, we're making a movie, and like let's sort of keep pushing it in that direction where we can really make this the strongest film possible.
And as the producer, you're probably the best person to ask about this, but were there any problems during production, or was it relatively smooth?
I mean, every
film
has
yeah.
a problem. I think we prepared a lot, and we got lucky in that we had a lot of our locations early. It was a challenge because I mean, I live in New York, and we were going to Texas to film, so like producing a film out of town was its own challenge. But I think production overall was pretty seamless. We did some pickups, and that's kind of like everything that can go wrong went wrong.
Right.
So we had shot outside this prison, like picking the scene with like the mother picking the daughter up, and when we were going back to Texas, I was just like getting in touch with all the people and all the things that we needed. So like, we need the prison because we want to do pickups. We need the picture car. Yeah, so the picture car was like given away, and then we couldn't track it down. And like there was a guy that ran some like he was like a repo man, and so I had talked to him when we first shot, and so I reached out to him. I was like, "Do you have any like janky cars that we can use?" And he unfortunately didn't have anything. We ended up having to use our rental car, which still makes me cringe a little bit, but I don't think anybody else notices. And then the other thing was the prison that we were shooting outside of. Someone escaped.
Oh, wow.
So we couldn't shoot outside of it, and so we had to cheat that. So like, we just had to improvise.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm getting the wrap up now, so just one last question. What advice would you give to any independent filmmakers who've not made their film yet?
Oh my God. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Nike will be in touch, you know. Nike will be in touch. They don't like it when you steal their, their slogan.
Yeah, I think just do it. Don't give up. It takes a lot of perseverance, and once you're done filming, that's not the end, and just get through the edit and submit to festivals.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.